Hello everyone, welcome to card 8. I started off with this image from the CC Designs Spring Has Sprung stamp set, and I stamped it with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto watercolor paper. I let that dry, and then I used my Labels 1 Spellbinders dies to cut it out. And then I'm going to use my distress markers to watercolor in the image. So I've got my little watercolor brush, and out of habit I just lightly go over the area I'm going to color just to get it damp so that the color blends smoother. And then I'm going in with the Vintage Photo ink and just scribbling it on kind of what my darkest areas would be. Just kind of a force of habit. It's been a long time since I've actually watercolored, so bear with me, and I'm no expert. I like to color. It's fun. So then it's just a matter of going over the marker color and just pulling all that color into the white areas. So when I've got a piece of paper towel right beside me to clean off the brush between colors and to dab on it when it gets too wet, because that's one of the drawbacks of using water brushes like this. Sometimes they can get really, really wet, and dabbing it off between makes a big difference. So then I went in and did the little body, did the exact same thing. Just coloring it in. I love this water brush because it's so like finely detailed. And then once I had finished the body, the head was fairly dry. So then I can go back in and add just a little bit more color just to give it a little bit more depth. And then same thing, just kind of going over the color and pulling it into the lighter areas. It's really simple. You don't have to be super precise with this because it is watercoloring. So if it kind of comes out the edges or whatever, it doesn't have to be perfect. So it gives it a completely different look. So, and then I super sped this up because I did the exact same thing on the body. Added a little bit more depth, and then the little body was done. So then I went on to do the ground, and I just used, where are my colors here? That's Shabby Shutters. Oh, there we go. So I scribbled that all along the bottom, and then went over it again with the watercolor brush. Again, not being super particular or fancy with it, just like so. And then once I did that, I'm going on to do kind of the sky behind. No rhyme or reason, just colored in some areas. This is Tumbled Glass distress marker. So I've got it all kind of just scribbled in place, and then this part I super sped up again. It actually didn't take very long, but I went over it first, and then I really saturated the watercolor paper and like basically got it completely soaked to really get it kind of blended, and as it dries it'll give it a more like mottled sort of effect, kind of thinking clouds in the background type thing. I don't know. So then once I did that, I went on to the little flowers in his nose, and I'm just using sponge sugar, which is really pale, so you don't get a lot of gradation with this color. But again, just being really careful, since the sky area is still like wet, you got to be careful with coloring any other areas that are near it, because otherwise the colors will start to bleed together. And then I just lightly dab the marker over that just to give it a little bit more color, but again, this is a really pale color. So yeah, and that was it for the image. Now it's just a matter of letting it dry. So I'm using the Authentique Splendid 6x6 papers, and just cut a few random papers, came up with a layout of sorts, and then trimmed that one piece down so I got it the way I wanted it. And then I wanted to matte the main image, like frame it, and I grabbed some Stampin' Up! Lucky Limeade cardstock for that. And I didn't like how big the frame would be if I used the next size up die. So what I did instead was I grabbed the same die I used to cut out the main image, lay it down flat onto the cardstock, and then just trace along the outer edge with a pencil. So just like so. And then I just trim that out with my scissors. And this works really well with simpler dies like this, ones that aren't too intricate. You can do it with more intricate ones. It just takes forever, and I don't have patience for that. So quickly trim that out, and then I just use my eraser to erase any of the pencil lines so that obviously they don't show up. And then I've got a nice little smaller mat for the main image, just like so. So it works quite nicely. And then to adhere it, I probably could have used my ATG with no problems, but it's just force of habit when I'm using something like watercolor paper because it, it curls a little bit. This didn't too badly, but I just used my Tombow Mono Multi to adhere it to the mat so that it's nice and flat. And again, it's still trying to dry. So then I adhered the card front, got that all done, matted that on a piece of chocolate chip cardstock, and then I grabbed some of this. This is ribbon by AmyR, the Textures ribbon. Again, I'm still waiting. I'm hoping Stampin' Up! Not Stampin' Up! Ugh, All That Scraps is going to get these ribbons in again because they are my favorite ribbons. They're just so pretty. So I taped a piece over like so that because I was going to tie the bow on the side, and that's how I wanted it to go. And just FYI, this ribbon does not come curled like this. The only reason it's curled is because I store it on those dolly pins. So after sitting like that for so many months on those pins, the ends of the ribbon curl, which is actually really nice. So I fiddled around with the bow a bit, and this time I didn't edit it out just because I've had people asking. It's just a matter of, pulling on the tails and pulling on the bow and adjusting it till you get it the way you want it. This time it went together perfectly. I was going to trim it, but you can just see the tails of it curled perfectly, so I just left it. It works. And then for the main image, I want to put up in dimensionals. I've completely run out of my bigger dimensionals. I placed an order with Jody like 2 days ago, so it'll be a little while before those get here. So got the main image up on just regular dimensionals, and then grabbed a few Prima flowers from my stash, and then just fiddled around. I wasn't sure where I was going to put them, like what corner, blah blah blah, and then decided on the lower corner, and they just ended up being exactly where they are, ended up being perfect. So I just used jumbo brads from my stash to adhere them. That was it for those. And then for the sentiment, I'm using a sentiment from my Be Happy stamp set and lining it up onto the acrylic block, and then using the Brilliance graphite black ink. My ink pad is way oversaturated. I wasn't paying attention last time I filled it up, so it's a little goopy, but I don't want to scrape the ink off because it's such a waste of ink and it's one of my favorites. But obviously, that screwed up my sentiment the first try because I got too much ink on it. So you just flip the cardstock around and do it again. And this time, got it perfect. So I use my heat tool just to quickly set that ink, because otherwise it takes forever to dry and it smears really easily if it's not dry. So set it with my heat tool and then trimmed it down. I didn't like, just because of the way I designed the sentiment, it's got a lot of like open space and it was just bugging me. So I grabbed my little piercing template. This is from Stampin' Up! I always link to it in with all the other links. Pierced 3 little holes and then just added 3 mini brown brads from my stash. Got those in, so that just kind of filled that little spot, and I just like that way better. So added a couple more little dimensionals to that, and then added one more because otherwise it wouldn't stay the way it's supposed to, and then just a little bit of adhesive so that it adheres to the main part of the image. And that's all there was to it for the card front. So once I've got that all adhered, I'm going to adhere that to the card base itself, which is again the Lucky limeade cardstock, just like so. And then of course I couldn't leave it without adding a little something to it, so I grabbed my cotton candy stickles. This just gives it like a little bit of texture. It's not really glittery, like it doesn't reflect light like some of the other stickles. The cotton candy, and then I think it's the baby blue it's called, it's the light blue one anyway. Yeah, like it's glitter, it's just not reflective glitter. If you guys have it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I just added a little bit of that, and then went on to the inside of the card, just did the same layout, just a few different pattern papers, die cut another labels one piece for a place to write something inside, and then grabbed another sentiment from the Be Happy set, and stamped that onto the remaining piece of pink cardstock. Heat set that so it was all nice and dry, and then trimmed it down. And then again fiddled around, kind of not sure where I was going to put the sentiment. Added adhesive, got that in place, and then I'm going to put this on the inside of the card. So as always, there'll be a link below to my blog with links to all the supplies used. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!